again, is the main problem. It's the Islamophobia that's causing all these women to be groped, obviously. Like the mayor of Cologne, who came out a few days afterwards and said, basically, defend yourself against the rapists by keeping them at arm's length. Virtually blaming the women for what happened to them and ludicrously suggesting that that could be a solution to the problem, which is sweeping Europe, which the primary victims of this are children, Muslim migrant children in migrant camps. Do we care about them? We obviously don't care about the German people, the Swedish women. They had a report out of Norway last week which blamed the large-scale spike in sexual assaults on Nordic drinking culture. Because Nordic drinking culture is a completely new phenomenon. We've never had that before, have we? No. They refuse to even identify the fact that most of the problem is arising out of bringing in people who treat women as second-class citizens, who think that they're liable to be groped, to be sexually assaulted, because they're not wearing a frigging hijab, because they're not covered up. So now again, another case of this in Germany. How many more cases of this before feminists and so-called women's rights activists actually stand up and identify the real aggressive patriarchal culture that is causing this? We'll be back with more news on the 4th hour overdrive of The Alex Jones Show. Don't go away. We are back. It's the 4th hour overdrive of The Alex Jones Show with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson. Now, the narrative, which we saw back a couple of months ago, put out by the mainstream media and never retracted, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, that Donald Trump was to blame for the violence being staged at his rallies, almost exclusively being staged by Bernie Sanders supporters. That narrative is now finally being overturned in light of these videos which we put out almost every single day, multiple times, over and over again. Irate, unhinged, crazy, demented leftists spitting at people, punching police horses, harassing anyone who dares disagree with their views. And of course, those videos were made possible by being able to fund and send our reporters out to those locations and catch that social justice warrior meltdown on tape. And of course, that is all funded by your support by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com. We've extended the Memorial Day special another day. Again, outstanding discounts at InfoWarsStore.com. You can get 30% off Super Male Vitality, 30% off Liver Shield, 30% off Mineral Fusion, 20% off Survival Shield X2, and 20% off all InfoWars apparel. So Hillary for Prison t-shirts, everything 20% off. Again, that special has been extended. And not only do you get great products, you can go and read the independent reviews, very highly rated indeed. We don't make those reviews ourselves. They're from people who have actually got the products, have gone on the website and taken the trouble to say how well they're working for them, how great they are. And of course, it helps support our broadcast. It helps support our expansion and our ability to actually act like a news organization, which takes a hell of a lot of money. And it takes a constant overturn, a constant supply of money to be able to do that. We've been able to send our reporters out to these locations, again, over the last few months to document the violent leftists and their war on free speech, which, as I will talk about in the next segment, really means that we're now winning. We've actually turned the corner in terms of beating the social justice warriors, and we're winning the war for free speech, which is why Twitter, Facebook, and now the unelected dictatorial EU is coming down hard once again with the censorship. We'll get back into that in the next segment. But again, go to InfoWarsStore.com to take advantage of those great specials. Again, 30% off some of the nutritional products and 20% off all InfoWars clothing. The Hillary for Prison t-shirt, all at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, the College Fix reports, despite drop in donations and enrollment, Mizzou finds over $1 million for diversity audit. Despite plunging donations and enrollment figures, the University of Missouri has begun an independent audit of its diversity and inclusion policies. The cost, $1.1 million. And again, this gets to the point which I'm going to make, and I'm going to get more into depth after the break, which is this. We're winning. Okay, we had this huge social justice warrior tantrum last year, the freaking out over the Halloween costumes, the cultural appropriation. Again, the University of Missouri, all these ridiculous lists of demands from permanently triggered safe spaces who are basically trying to completely overturn every existing system, every social moray, every political construct, whether it's good or bad, because they're flagrant communists. You can read the Communist Manifesto. In fact, Kurt Nimmo quoted from it in an article today, one of the very final passages where it says that's their plan, is to overturn absolutely everything and remold society in their own image. And given that their image is punching and spitting at people in the face who disagree with them because they have no argument, that's probably not an image which we want society to reflect. So you saw at the University of Missouri the consequences of that tantrum. Their new freshman class is down 1,400 students smaller than last year. They've got a 24% drop in donations to the football team that went on strike. They've got a $6 million decline in donations for the month of December. They're losing. No one wants to go there because smart, successful people don't want to be educated at an insane asylum, which is what a lot of these universities are now being turned into, with the inmates running the asylum. We'll be back with this and more news after the break. This is The Alex Jones Show Live. We are back on the fourth hour overdrive of The Alex Jones Show with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson. So the University of Missouri's response to the fact that it's been hemorrhaging money from every orifice since last year's social justice warrior meltdown tantrum is to waste another $1 million on a diversity audit. Again, a completely pointless exercise simply to satiate triggered, demented, left-wing idiots. Look at these numbers. Their new freshman class is 1,470 students smaller than last year. They've experienced a 24% drop in donations in the 3 months that followed the football player strike. They experienced a $6 million decline in donations for the month of December. So how have they responded? Well, they've doubled down on their idiocy. I mean, compare the reactions of these universities. I talked about the inmates running the asylum. DePaul University. We saw the footage last week. Again, Milo Yiannopoulos tries to give a speech at an event. It's crashed by unhinged Black Lives Matter demonstrators who almost provoke violence. The university demanded that Breitbart pay the security cost. They paid the bill, and the security did absolutely nothing because they were ordered to do nothing by the university. The police were told by the university not to get involved, even though if it was the other way around, if so-called evil right-wingers had crashed the safe space of these whiny crybabies, it would have been complete bedlam. There would have been arrests. There would have been horrified newspaper headlines the next day. But DePaul University did nothing. Their president offered a mealy-mouthed apology, which meant absolutely nothing. And what's the result? Well, a 1.1 rating out of 5 on their official Facebook page. Again, the marketplace of free ideas has completely trashed their reputation, and rightly so. Who would want to go to an institution, a university? The whole frigging point of a university is to share ideas, is to have your own beliefs challenged. They stand diametrically opposed to that, and now they're going to suffer in the free marketplace of ideas and rightly so. The University of Missouri is suffering in terms of funding. They're hemorrhaging money from left, right, and center. Because again, they've allowed the inmates to run the asylum. And smart, successful people don't want to be educated at an insane asylum. But then you can look at other examples, better examples. Rutgers University, again, you had a Milo event which was crashed by social justice warriors. The president came out afterwards, defended, quote, controversial ideas as fundamental to the intellectual life of a university. Basically stated the fact. Oberlin College rejected the egregious, absurd list of demands from their triggered safe space students, calling it deeply troubling. You saw Melissa Click, again, back during that Missouri mass tantrum last year, calling for muscle to silence the First Amendment. She was fired by the university, and rightly so. And again, I'm getting messages every single day from college students who are on our side. So when we lambast these triggered safe spaces at these universities across America and the United Kingdom, let's just realize that a lot of those students are no longer going along with it. So we're winning. We're really starting to convince some of these universities to actually stand up for the very foundation, the very purpose of what a university is supposed to be. But over in the UK, we have this headline out of the Daily Mail. Students call for prisons to be banned. NUS group headed by union's anti-Semitic new president says all criminals should be freed. This is the new social justice warrior cause, freeing all violent criminals. This is no surprise given that the head of the NUS, a woman called Malia Buata, came out recently and basically said that she refused to denounce ISIS. She refused to condemn ISIS, saying that doing so would be an act of Islamophobia. How many times have I talked about the alliance between Islamists and leftists? That alliance is moving closer because a lot of these leftists are anti-Semites. They hate Jews. They're racists. So now an influential students group has called for prisons to be abolished because they are sexist and racist, in the latest in a series of far-left interventions by the student movement. The National Union of Students Black Students Conference also voted to step up its fight against the government's anti-extremism agenda, in other words, refusing to condemn ISIS. The controversial votes at the conference in Bradford came after Malia Buatia was elected president of the union, defeating the more moderate incumbent. She has previously argued that it's Islamophobic to oppose ISIS and described one university as a Zionist outpost because it has a large Jewish society. So now they're actually calling for prisons to be abolished. No one's debating that the prison industrial complex isn't a problem, that locking up people, you know, for possessing an ounce of marijuana isn't completely ridiculous. That's not the argument. They're actually arguing to release all the prisoners because disproportionately many of them are black. Of course, that's nothing to do with the fact that black people commit disproportionately more crimes, but again, we can't talk about that because facts are racist. So we're having victories on, at some level, at universities in the US, but in the UK, again, a long way to go. Now, over in France, Paris tourism hit by attacks, protests, this is AFP, already suffering from the impact of last year's jihadist attacks. Tourism in Paris faces a fresh challenge from the recent wave of violent strikes and protests, tourism bosses warned on Monday. Listen to these figures. Paris's tourism industry is basically collapsing at this point. Japanese visitors down 56% in the first quarter of the year. Russian visitors down 35%. Again, similar numbers with Chinese tourists. People don't want to visit Paris. And it's not just because, you know, Hug a Muslim didn't work. They got attacked. Charlie Hebdo, they got attacked again last November. It's not just down to that. It's because the leftists now in Paris and other major cities in France are actually